Welcome back to another tier list video, and this time we're taking a look at the impact of patch 13.8 and how those champions changed affected the meta. We're going to dive straight into the video and start off with the top lane. In the S tier we have Shen, Olaf, Jax, Riven, Kled, Rengar, Akshan, Zac, Maokai, Singed, Poppy and Ornn. Some usual suspects and some big tanky beasts joining that S tier this week. Garen though has seen some huge improvements since his buffs last week to his base stats, and he's earned back that place in the A tier. Garen hasn't really been too relevant this season, so it's great to see him back up there again. He is a pretty basic champion, but his impact can be super strong in certain matchups, and if he does get fed, he can be pretty difficult to deal with, especially with that ultimate, as it seriously does hurt. Now, we stated this last week, but Poppy didn't really feel like she was in a bad spot already, and the buffs have definitely sent her over the edge. She's now up there with some of the best picks in the game, and her popularity has shot straight back up as well. Poppy has so much to offer in her kit with her disruption, anti-mobility, her CC, and her damage. So when she is in a good spot in the meta, it's hard not to play her. She can be an absolute menace in most games. She can weak side, she can dive, she can flank, you name it, she can do it. If you're a top lane main and you haven't played her yet this patch, give her a go. Malphite's nerfs have seen his win rate decline by around 1.7%, but he's still in a good spot, which only demonstrates how crazy OP he was for those few patches. He's gone back to still being a fantastic pick in the right matchups, but not quite as perma-pick broken YOLO win no matter what this week. If you can get him into those lanes you can shut down easily with your cripple, you're always going to have fun. And then you get into team fights with a ton of resistances and pop that ultimate and do your thing. GG easy. Moving into the jungle now, and in the S tier we have Fiddlesticks, Jarvan, Kha'Zix, Gragas, Udyr, Evelynn, Bel'Veth, Nocturne and Echo. Kha'Zix has seen a big improvement since his buffs last week to his Q's base damage, and he's risen back into the S tier for the first time in quite a while now. Kha'Zix is a seriously scary assassin jungler, and when he's in the meta it can be a pretty terrifying experience, especially for you AD carry mates. He packs a ton of damage, some solid mobility and stealth too, making him the perfect 1v9 solo carry champion to play this patch. Just watch out for those tanks. Lilia is another jungler who got buffed this week, and again it's made a nice bit of impact. Lilia has been a bit absent for a while now after being slightly over-nerfed previously, but now slowly but surely people are realizing just how good she can be. Her niche playstyle of kiting, weaving and dancing her way through fights is relatively underestimated, and a good Lilia player can be extremely punishing to play against. Nidalee is definitely more suited to those higher ranking players, but she also just got buffed last week and they have made a slight difference. You do need a good amount of jungle knowledge and understanding to pull off Nidalee, but if you can, she is and has always been a really tricky champion to beat. She has huge amounts of early game burst damage and can snowball ridiculously quickly, so if you are good enough to pull off Nidalee, it may be time to give her another look. Kane's nerfs last week have definitely hurt him, as well as he's seen a fall in his win rate of nearly 2%. He's been surprisingly good for a few patches now, so it's expected to see some nerfs, but we didn't expect them to make this much of a dent. Now, whether you are a red or blue Kane enjoyer, he's been having a lot of fun recently. Tons of mobility and damage, great durability, and amazing ability to solo carry, and he whizzes around the map and clears the jungle so quickly it feels like he's everywhere all at once. These nerfs have made a difference though, so let's see how he looks in the next few weeks. Jarvan is still a great choice despite those nerfs last week, and even though they did hit him hard with a 1.6% loss in his win rate, he's still up there with the best junglers in the game. Jarvan just offers so much for such a low amount of risk. He's got immensely powerful ganks in the early game, and he has so much to bring in teamfights with the CC and disruption. You can build full AD, a bit bruisery, or tank and equally be as effective in most of your games. Now listen, I'm sure you're all already playing J4 by now, but if not, why not? Let's have a quick look into the mid lane now, and in the god tier we have Akshan and Annie. In the S tier we have Cassiopeia, Aurelion Sol, Talon, Ahri, Anivia, Vladimir and Pantheon. A bit of a strange concoction of champions to say the least, with the faces we've seen all season and some surprising recent additions. Aurelion Sol has just been pumping out some serious numbers and winning a crazy amount of games since his rework though, and despite being nerfed yet again, he's still up there in the S tier. Sol just scales like a god, and he finally feels fitting of his lore when he gets to that late game. However, it's not just the late game though, as he's much harder to punish than you think in the early game, with his W being such a reliable mobility and escape tool. Now in some matchups he may struggle in the lane phase, but it just doesn't seem to matter too much, because if you do get to that late game, you're easily going to 1v9. Speaking of 1v9ing, Akshan moved up to the god tier this week with an unbelievable 54.7% win rate. This champion has always been present since his release, but recently he's just starting to prove how potent he actually is. His early game damage, his ability to roam, his cleaning up strengths, his mobility and their resets, and his ability to revive his teammates all make him so hard to actually play against. And if you do forget about him for just one fight, he can swing his way in, kill the whole team, and swing back out again. We definitely expect some nerfs to Akshan in the near future, but for now, if you're playing solo queue, there's not too many better options. Talon is up to the S tier this week after climbing his way back up by just performing more consistently over recent weeks. He's one of those picks you don't see quite as often as some of the more other popular S tier mid laners, but when you do see him, you're instantly reminded of how punishing he can be to play against. His mobility around the map is by far his biggest strength, and if you don't play around that, he can get all over the map insanely quickly and start getting fed too. Now, if he does get fed, his damage is a bit bonkers, and he can zoom around one-shotting squishies in seconds and get back to lane before you can even try to punish him. He does take a little bit of practice with his niche playstyle, and yes, you do have to learn those damage limits. But trust me, if you do, you will definitely be rewarded this patch. Over to those AD carries now, and in the God tier we still have Jinx, and in the S tier we have Jhin, Xayah, Twitch, Ashe, Karthus, Seraphine and Kog'Maw. Kog'Maw still isn't getting played that often, but when you look at his stats, you can see when he is picked, he's winning a ton of games. He saw a juicy increase in his win rate from the buffs in patch 13.8, and if you get him in the right drafts, it does actually feel a bit like a free win. Now, you have got to be super careful of those bursty champions and assassins, but if you line up against a couple of tanks, you're going to be able to tear through them with ease. Kog'Maw alongside an enchanter is one of the hardest things to beat once they do get scaled up. So if you haven't tried this yet, give it a go. Ezreal got his base AD buff last week, and this is the first time he's had a positive win rate all season, and probably much longer. Ezreal always seems to find it tricky to keep ahead of the meta, and it's really only those top Ezreal players that can make him feel consistently strong. All year round though, those one tricks are popping off on this champion, so when the general player base can play him too, you know he's in a good position. If you do have the skills to play Ezreal consistently and optimally, he's actually always going to be really good. So if you haven't tried him recently, it could be a great time to pick him back up again. The poke, the kiting, the relentless DPS, the snipes, the burst, he is a ton of fun, so don't miss out. Jinx though is still completely broken with a 52.5% win rate in Plat Plus. She's been dominating the last few patches and the nerfs are certainly on the way. She just offers a crazy late game. Her scaling, her AoE splash damage, her range and her resets all make her so much stronger than most of her fellow marksmen. She's going to remain in the God tier for now, but let's see what nerfs are on the way next week in patch 13.9. Finally, let's have a look at support now, and in the God tier we have Senna, and in the S tier we have Rakan, Blitzcrank, Thresh, Pyke, Melio, Janna, Annie and Sona. Yes, Janna has shot back up to the S tier after her buffs in patch 13.8, and in solo queue she's back to her best again. She brings so much to the table in her utility, those slows, shields and heals, and as long as you can position safely whilst dishing all of this out, you just can't really go wrong. Janna works well with pretty much any AD carry in the game. She fits into most team compositions, and you can quickly see why she's such a safe but valuable pick into any game. If you enjoy that real enchanter life-saving disengage utility playstyle, just keep picking Janna this patch. Leona saw a slight improvement this patch too with the buffs to her W, and if you pick her with the right AD carry who can really capitalize on her burst, you will be instantly reminded of just how strong Leona can be in the right games. Leona's crowd control is relentless, and when partnered up with some good damage follow-up, she can snowball bot lanes incredibly quickly and make it instantly unplayable for her enemies. Leona becomes very tanky very quickly, especially with that W up, and in early dragon fights those stuns can be lethal. There are not many better supports to play when you're queued up as a duo bot combo. Get level 2, flash in, stun lock, burst them down and rinse and repeat for the rest of the game. GG, well played. Rakan has been having the season of his life, and he's been up there in the top tiers for a while now. Last week's nerfs to his base stats actually did make more of a difference than we'd initially thought, but it doesn't really matter because he's still got a great win rate and he's still in a great spot. Rakan brings so much with him in games, from his mobility to his engage and disengage, and even some sustain and shielding too. Just like Janna, he fits into so many different team comps and drafts, making him such a reliable and versatile champion to main. Rakan and Xayah is still a terrifying combination in the right hands, so give that a go if you haven't recently, and aside from that, if you are enjoying Rakan, there is no reason to stop playing him anytime soon. That's going to bring us to the end of our patch 13.8 tier list video update. Don't forget you can check out our low and high elo tier lists over on our website and download our desktop app to get all the best builds and runes imported straight into your client. Thanks as always for watching guys, and we'll see you all next time. Take care.